Hello, hello, hello. Um, welcome, welcome to our semester together. Um, I'm Austin Slot. I will be the instructor for this course. This digital course, this online course, for some of us, this is the only way that we are going to interact with each other. Um, for others who are taking the ALP class, in fact, the majority of us who are in that ALP course, as well as the 1101, you know who you are, obviously. Um, I'll see you very soon. But regardless, this is going to be where all of the 1101 content um, will be hosted and how it's going to be presented. We will have these kind of like weekly video lectures. Expect probably at least a couple every week. I'll try to keep them, as streamlined as possible. I do tend to talk, especially when I'm just by myself, and I feel like I have to just be my own audience. So I'll do my best to make sure that the content is you know, paced well, and that I'm not boring you too much with the way we do this. I do think it's important to still do the video lecture stuff. I always, as a student, when I would take an online class and it was just strictly, it's asynchronous like we are. We're an asynchronous class, but I never, put a face to the professor. I never got to, conference with them or, meet even just in a digital platform interface in that sort of way. It just felt very like disingenuous. It just felt very distant. And, I tended to not do very well in those classes either. So if this is your first time taking an online class, hopefully you appreciate this format. This is of course in lieu of our a meeting time in which we would meet in person. We'll just do these like weekly video lectures, but then with that, I'm 100% available to um, meet with you guys like digitally. I am on campus every single day too. So if you're taking, an online course, this online course, and you're taking, other classes in person, and you want to meet up for a conference, or you need feedback on papers and assignment, whatever it is that we're doing, I'm available for that as well. But yeah, so this is going to be pretty much par for the course. These little video interactions. Today, tonight, this week, this first video, it is going to be all about the syllabus. There will be a follow-up video to this. Hopefully, you're obviously you're seeing this on Blackboard right now, and you're seeing the all of the content posted for the week. We'll go over the Blackboard page here in a moment, in addition to the syllabus, but that's the plan for this first video. I just want to go through, just the general information for the class, my goals for the course, important things that you need to know if you're going to get a good grade in this class, get the grade that you want, or at least pass the class. And then we'll call it there, and I'll save the rest of the weekly content for the next video or two. Hopefully, I can fit it all into one video. If it gets a little cramped, then I'll move on to a second one. But without any further ado, let me go ahead and share this screen of mine. Ooh, frozen. All right. So sharing screen. Yes, good. I'm still in the corner. All right. So let me pull over our Blackboard page first. I've yet to switch to Ultra. I've used Ultra in the past at other schools that I teach at. I know they're pushing it. They're wanting me to switch to Ultra. Maybe you probably already have classes, that have embraced the new Blackboard format. I've yet to do so. I'm a little bit of a procrastinator. Um, and so I don't think it's going to impact anything if I see that it's an issue in any sort of way. And like, for example, video lectures aren't uploading, then maybe I'll troubleshoot it by switching to Blackboard Ultra. That's what I'm referring to in case you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. We are, as a college, moving to a new LMS by next semester. I still have another semester. So by spring 2026, we'll be with the Blackboard 2.0 version. Long awaited. I think that Blackboard, it looks exactly the same way it did when I went to COD, which was 14 years ago. Um, so yeah, the Blackboard Ultra, it's nicer, it's cleaner. I don't have anything against it. I'm not like necessarily like technologically um, uh, against. I'm not against technology. I got distracted because there was a bug on my window and I wanted to make sure it wasn't a spider. It's not. It's just it's a little stick bug. So we're good to go. But at any rate, yes, Blackboard. This is what our page looks like. Maybe some of us, this is our very first college class. For those people, excellent, right? This is then your first introduction to Blackboard. Others, you should be familiar with this operating system. So the only things posted right now, right, left-hand side, we see first is the syllabus, which we are going to take a look at here any moment. And then the other thing is module one. So our semester is divided into three separate modules, and each of the modules will have a final writing project at the end, um, due at the end. I mean, we'll be working on it throughout the entire module, but that's kind of how we divide up our semester. So three major writing projects, and in terms of how I present and organize the Blackboard page, uh, like I said, I break down semester into the modules, and then I do weekly content. So Monday morning, you should always have a new weekly folder on there. Um, Maybe I get a little busy and post it like later in the day, Monday, but Mondays for sure, you should always at some point see the content for the week posted, and I just split it up into these little subfolders under the respective module. So you've probably already seen this because you are watching this video, um, and you've familiarized yourself with it to some extent. So let's get back to the syllabus then. Got the syllabus over here. Pretty standard stuff. The first part of the syllabus, I tell this to all my classes, but the first part of every syllabus, every class you take, really at any school, um, is just boilerplate stuff. It's stuff that I'm forced to put in there. Other people probably like to get a little cutesy with their syllabus and put like, here's my favorite band, here's stuff like that. That's great. If you're interested in that information, if you're interested in like getting to know me like that, by all means, ask me. But like, I'm not gonna like impose that on you. I'm not gonna be like, hey, look how deep I am with the music that I like and the movies that I watch. Whatever, right? It's a teacher's attempt to be more personable. I feel like I'm personable enough. My personality shines through enough that I don't need to kind of compensate with showing students that I'm not a robot and I don't sleep at school like we thought about our teachers in elementary school. So COD, Department of English, we know we're there. Obviously, you're in the right section, otherwise you wouldn't be able to watch this video in the first place. But yes, we are net 48 slash ALP 48. In terms of office hours, so I don't have set office hours because unfortunately I'm not a tenured professor yet. Fingers crossed, right? Still adjunct, which means here's my dumb dad joke with that. I do all the work of a full-time tenure professor, but they get to pay me less. Hilarious, hilarious. It gets a laugh 20% of the time. But office hours TBD by appointment. That's just because, since I don't have a dedicated space, I'm not required to be on campus. Um, so when you do want to meet, as I said at the very beginning part of the video, just tell me when is convenient and it's convenient for you. Tell me how and where. The majority of my students elect just to do digital conferences, which I am totally cool with. I do have the good fortune of living quite close to campus, so it's not a big deal for me either if you want to meet in person. Whereas my other schools that I teach at. I teach at two other colleges that are very far away. Um, and those students, they got to meet with me digitally. I'm not going to drive, an hour to go meet up with some kid who's wants to talk for 5 minutes about, whatever the hell it is. So just because I don't have dedicated office hours doesn't mean I'm not just at your disposal, ready to help however I can if you feel like you're in need of said help and take me up on it, right? I always feel like the students that take me up on it um, end up doing maybe a little bit better in the class. And it has nothing to do with like, my own sort of like bias being like, oh, this person did this. And so therefore I'm going to boost their grade. It just feels like it goes hand in hand with being um, kind of just committed to the class, committed to um, the reality in which we are working, right? Committed to doing a good job, but also committing to like making it their own, as you should be doing in all of your classes. And kind of the exciting thing about taking a humanities class and our class specifically, an English class, the assignments, the course, yes, it's all about writing. Okay, so I know the majority of us probably hate writing, which is understandable. You probably hate English. You've had perhaps bad English teachers. You've had bad English experiences, whatever it is. I understand that writing is this thing that we kind of have, some hangups about, but understand that kind of like the class is geared towards you having the opportunity to, as I just mentioned, make it your own, right? So that means choosing texts, choosing when we do something like a rhetorical analysis, choosing things that interest you to analyze, right, for the topic of your assignment. For our first project, for our first major writing assignment, you're telling a story about yourself. Bears just picked off again. Bears are kicking some ass today. You're telling a story about yourself and you're going to adapt it into a new medium, right? So you can tell a story about yourself and then make a TikTok page. You can tell a story about yourself and then make a podcast, right? So this is what I mean by like taking advantage of the advantages of those opportunities when you have a class that allows you some space to make it your own. We're not a math class. We don't have a textbook, right? So we're not doing things by the book. We're not doing things in this sort of like traditional stuffy classroom sort of way, where the teacher just talks and you listen slash fall asleep. And that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. And it's not just because we're online. That's for all of my classes and the majority of English classes that you would take at COD and otherwise, right? You definitely have some very good teachers out there that are committed to that idea, right? Allowing you the space to make all of these concepts your own. Otherwise, what the hell is the point of it, right? You're seeing this stuff, you're being introduced to these concepts that you're kind of like, I don't really know what this means at this stage in the semester. And even if I were to complete this course, if I had a crappy teacher that just whatever focused on marginalizing this topic, focused on marginalizing these core concepts into something that only fits within an English classroom, and I'm not an English major, I don't really care that much about writing, then all this stuff is going to go, in one ear and out the other. So it's my goal, of course, to try to help you see how this is stuff you can use in your future, right? Writing doesn't have to be, and in fact, it isn't. I promise you it isn't. It is not this thing that's just, I'm either born with it and I'm good at it because I have this God-given skill, or I don't have it and therefore I hate it and I'm just going to avoid it at all costs. That's not the case. We use writing every single day. Every single day of your life, you are engaging in some form of writing slash interpersonal communication slash rhetoric. Um, and so, this class, like, of course, it's my goal to help you think more critically about those things, think more analytically about those things, and just become a better overall communicator because it's going to make you better at your job. You're going to have happier relationships. You're just going to be a better overall person. And I know, wow, what a promise over here. Um, but of course, it's a give and take, right? You have to kind of embrace this this stuff that we're talking about, right? And I can only do so much, but promise you, you have the space to discuss things and explore topics, explore mediums that you're interested in, and you know, along the way, have some fun, do some learning. It's not just about getting the grade, right? Of course, we want the grade. Yes, we all want to, you know, just get this grade and move on. It's no secret that this is a required course, regardless of what kind of a degree that you want to get. You have to take Comp 1. You have to take Comp 2 as well. Comp 2 is a little more stuffy. It's a little more research based. So enjoy Comp 1 while you can, right? Enjoy the opportunity to, you know, explore these topics that you might not have necessarily considered would exist, would be applicable to an English classroom, would be worthy of our discussion. But I promise you they are. Promise you they are. So whatever you want to bring to the table, please do. All right, enough talk. I'm already like well over. What time do we got? 6:20. Oh gosh. Okay. So course description. Let's just read through this stuff. I'll try to contextualize a few of these things, but we'll just push through this real quick and then get through the rest of the meat and potatoes of the syllabus. So yeah, this class introduces the key concepts in rhetoric and writing, including situation and context, audience, genre, purpose, and persuasion. Students apply these concepts in writing projects that demonstrate how reading and writing are embedded in multifaceted academic, personal, social, political, and or professional purposes. These writing projects unfold through a deliberate process of inquiry, feedback, and revision. Okay. So as I said, every English class that you take, they have the same course description. You probably already came across it when you were registering for this class. Yeah. What can I say? Like this stuff is probably going well over your head right now. What do we mean situation and context? These are words that I've heard before, but like how do they apply? Audience, genre, these are purpose. Yes, these are things that I'm familiar with these words, but it just depends entirely on how you're using them. And so we'll talk about that, right? In the next video, in fact, we get into rhetorical situation. We get into audience and the importance of understanding who your audience is and how that changes everything when you're communicating a message, when you're writing a piece, when you're writing a composition. It changes everything. When you consider what your perceived audience, what do you know about them? What are their expectations for you? And how do we like interact with them in the way that your intended purpose aligns with, right? We're talking about rhetoric. Rhetoric, it's so hard to just give a single definition for it. But typically the most, fundamental one is just that it's all persuasive interpersonal communication. Okay? So anytime you interact with somebody, whatever context it is, that's a rhetorical situation, right? So we'll get into all that good stuff in the next video. I don't want to do it right now because we just got to push through this. But understand that you're gonna know what these things mean by the end of our semester. So if this stuff doesn't mean anything to you right now, that's okay, right? I didn't write it. I just copy and pasted it. So don't worry. We'll walk through all this stuff at the appropriate time. Course objectives. Practice writing as a process involving inquiry and invention, composing, response from instructor and peers, revision, and editing according to appropriate conventions. It's all about writing process, and writing process to me is like very closely linked to like study habits and like work ethic, and so like what is it that how do you like to study? Like what kind of an environment do you like to study in? Do you like to listen to music? Do you like to be out in public? Do you like to be in the library? Right? When you begin writing something, what's that process like? Are you able to start at the introduction and just like move linear all the way through to the conclusion? Or do you have just a bunch of racing thoughts and you just got to like throw some stuff on the paper, see what sticks, and then go back later and reorganize it? we want to think about those things, right? Because there's legitimacy to all of them. There's not just like one way of doing it. Again, going back to what I said earlier, it's not like, you know, there's like this notion, this fallacy of like the writing is like the the profound, um, sublime, you know, poet, uh, journalist, visionary who like sits in the town square, sits under a tree and just like pontificates and is just letting their pen be the vessel to their heart, where they're just bleeding all over the page and letting them, all of that crap is so played out, um, entirely untrue. If you liken yourself to one of those people, hey man, that's great. That's great. I don't have to convince you, right? You're already coming from a different place where than a majority of my students are. But for those of us who would like, yeah, that sounds familiar, and that kind of person I can't stand, right? Not that you've necessarily met one of them, but like, yeah, that kind of English teacher, that kind of, you know, uh, you know, pretentious, self-indulgent commentator on everything that is aware. Everything that happens in my mind is so intelligent, so groundbreaking, and it allows me to be a writer because I hold all of these absolute truths. All that shit's for the birds. We don't need that, right? We don't need that. We each have our own writing process. We do what works for us. So embrace that. Embrace what works well for you. That's my message. Next one, analyze rhetorical situations as they relate to discourse communities. More puffery, more words that we aren't familiar with necessarily. Discourse communities? What is that? We'll discuss it. Think about it. Think about it. Discourse community, break it down. All right. Think about it and write your responses in the chat. Uh, Next, identify particular audiences and appropriate rhetorical moves, strategies, and/or responses. Well, we already said a moment ago that your audience changes everything. Your audience, the way that you write a text message to your grandma is totally different than the way you write a text message in a group chat with your friends. So audience, always the first thing, first or second. But yeah, one of the first things that we have to consider when we're starting that process of composing. Next one, demonstrate engagement with intellectually complex writing situations, accounting for multiple perspectives via readings, visual media, and other texts. Yeah, we're not a literature class, guys. So I'm sure that all of us are coming from, a background where in high school we had, these English teachers that loved Hemingway and loved Fitzgerald. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're being forced to read this stuff, forced to include in the curriculum. They just absolutely adore it, and they expect you to love it too. Well, that's not us. That's not this class. We are not reading a book. Okay, we're not reading a novel. Um, so my emphasis is on visual media and other sorts of text, right? When I say text, I don't just mean like a novel or a book or an English paper. Anything that somebody creates rhetorically for the sake of communicating a message can be considered a text, right? So a speech is a text, even though I'm speaking, right? Even though I'm giving this address, whether I'm the president or I'm just some person in an oral communication class giving a how-to speech on how to lay down a bunt, it's still a text, right? Social media is text. Every post that you see, that's a text. There's an author behind the scenes who created this. They're considering their audience. Maybe they're not considering it, fully, but the best ones do, right? The ones that are most successful in their spaces, the most successful at their craft, of course, they're considering their audience. Movies are text, video games are text. So when I say that word this semester, understand that I'm not talking about like just readings, books. We'll have some readings here and there, right? I do pull some pages from a PDF version of a textbook here in the early parts of the semester that I'll ask you to read. But aside from that, we're not going to be like engaging in like literary analysis. We'll still analyze, but the difference is that we're thinking rhetorically. We're thinking rhetorical analysis. So some of you may have had some experience with that. When I talk about it in my class, I mean, what's the real world implication to this, right? When you think about a literary analysis, it's like, oh, well, these characters, these symbols, this plot, everything kind of stays within the boundaries of the pages of the book, right? You can still use a book and conduct a rhetorical analysis on a book, but you're thinking about, okay, what are these characters? Who do they represent in our society, right? When we think about the audiences who are engaging with this, how does this text have an impact on their lives, and how might it like formulate public opinion about certain things? So with that, of course, it'd be silly for us to just like, oh, we only are going to read books. We're only going to look at this one medium, this one genre of writing, this one genre of communication, when the stuff in our lives that's the most prominent, that we're, using the most, right? The stuff on our phones, the stuff on our computers, things in real life, the things that, the way that whatever it is that we like to do for fun when we're engaging with media, when we're getting, information about the world, watching the news, whatever it is, it'd be silly for us to ignore those things, to treat those as if they're not worthy of our analysis. And they I promise you, they 100% are, and that is going to be the focus of our semester. Those are the texts that I'm interested in digging into. With that, we will create texts, including essays in print and or digital formats that respond to varied rhetorical situations, use citable methods of citation, and produce reflective writing for self-assessment. Yeah, reflection is a big part of our semester, right? We'll have, I think, 4 separate reflections throughout the semester. We'll have like a beginning one where it's like, hey, what's your kind of relationship with writing? And then you'll have a final one that's like, okay, over the course of our semester, what do you feel like you can use in the future? And then 2 of the major projects will also have reflections attached to them, where I just kind of ask you to address these things like, okay, how did you, how are you appealing to your audience, right? How did you consider an audience when you were writing this? How did that change the language that you're using? How did that change, the medium? That might have affected the medium that you're using for the first writing project. It 100% will, right? So reflection is going to be a big part of our semester. We want to make sure that, we're not just doing stuff because I'm telling you to do it. We want to understand why we're doing it, okay? And so you demonstrate that knowledge to me by doing these little reflections. Okay, so that pretty much summarizes my goals for the semester as well, right? I'm all about learning transfer, so taking whatever we are doing in our class, and then you being able to apply it to these other areas in life, where they make the most sense. So whether it is, your major, your whatever major you're doing, your future career choice, future career path, seeing how writing affects those things, um, or even just like on a smaller scale, just like, being better at being a better texter, right? Being better at writing emails. We all hate emails, but it's a skill. It's a necessary skill. Being better at writing a resume, this kind of stuff, right? We'll get through all of that in due time, but that's what I mean, right? And that's really, what I aim to do for you guys, with you guys. It's meant to be collaborative, okay? I know it's tougher to do when we're all online, but nevertheless, required text, good news. There's no textbook. You don't have to buy a textbook. It's an OER textbook, which means open educational resource. It's free to use. I have PDFs. I'll post them when appropriate. There's one for this week that you guys have to read, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So, no textbooks that you have to buy. Methods of instruction, we've kind of already gone through this, right? It's an asynchronous course. We'll do readings in whether it's a reading or watching a video or engage, whatever it is. A reading is kind of just like a general term. Um, and whatever materials I have for you that week, you'll read, watch, view these and analyze them. You'll be asked to do discussion boards. My discussion boards aren't like other classes. I know so many teachers will have the kind of answer this question and then respond to two other classmates, and the responses are always like, "Hey, that's a really good idea. Wow, I agree with that." That's not collaboration, right? That's what I was just mentioning a moment ago. That's like we're just doing this because we're getting the grade, right? We're just doing this because you're telling us to do it. So I don't even waste time with that. But there still will be discussion boards and other material, other homework assignments here and there, and what have you. I don't believe in busy work. I don't like busy work. I don't like people giving me busy work. So I don't do the busy work myself in my classes. Also, just more stuff to grade. What teacher likes grading? None of them do, unless you're a glutton for punishment. As I mentioned, I'm available for Zoom meetings. I encourage you guys to take advantage of that. Participation. So participation, of course, it's in a non-traditional sense, but the way you do that is just by doing the stuff that I've posted, right? Completing that on a weekly basis in a timely basis, right? Like doing it when the due date says to submit it, getting it done by that due date. Okay, so yes, though there will be video lectures. There's no getting past those. You got to watch the video lectures, or else you're probably not going to know what's going on. We'll have journals, discussion boards, maybe some group work here and there. It does get a little difficult to do, of course, because we're all online. I've found ways to do it in the past, and so I plan on still incorporating that into the class, but it won't really it's not going to look like in the form of a group project or something like that. But just opportunities to give feedback to your classmates and receive feedback, I think are always useful in a class like this. So yeah, you do this stuff, you'll get full points. It's really as simple as that, and you got to do it on time. Okay. We'll get to late work here in a moment, but since we're talking about smaller things like discussion boards, like the homework assignments, I don't accept late homework assignments. And the reason being, especially for this class, right? By the time we're on to the next week, not only are we online, but we're 12 weeks, right? So we're already kind of moving at a faster pace. So smaller homework assignments, I'm depending on you to have that done, have that completed for the flow of the class to go correctly, right? Because there will be times where it's like I'm literally using the homework assignments that you guys are doing for the week as part of the next week's video lecture, right? And so if you don't have it ready to go by the time I'm making that video, which is always, on Sundays, then there's not a way to retroactively go back and reassign, some sort of makeup assignment. I don't do that. I'm not in the business of figuring out ways that you can make up work that you should have just done in the first place. So, yeah, I can be just like a little bit of a hard ass about that, but you have a whole week, right? And I know you got other stuff going on, sure, but I'm never gonna be assign you something on a Monday and then get it done by Tuesday, right? The majority of the assignments, it's like you have at least a week to do these small homework assignments. So that's what I mean by getting it done in a timely manner. Do the work, right? Do the work. There's not a way to go back and earn it. I don't accept late homework assignments. Um, there's also no extra credit. I don't do extra credit either. In terms of attendance, right? There's no meeting time for our class, of course, but you earn attendance points through your participation, right? There are participation points on a weekly basis, and it comes down to, are you getting the work done? Are you doing the stuff Are you completing it when it needs to be completed? If not, you're losing points. Okay. Another thing to note, right? Hopefully you're reading this, soon after this is posted, because if you have not engaged with the online work, and this is a department-wide policy, a school-wide policy, if you haven't done anything, if you haven't logged into Blackboard and done an assignment for this class by Monday, October 6th, so 2 weeks, you're going to be withdrawn from the course. It'd be the same thing if we were in class. If we were in class and you hadn't attended the class in the first 2 weeks, you're out, withdrawn from the course. You get your refund, bye-bye. Okay. Major projects, I will accept late major projects within reason, right? So don't wait. Don't, we got a first project, already, we'll already begin discussing it very soon. Don't wait until week 12 to submit that project. I'm not going to accept that. Okay. You can't do that. But I do understand that stuff happens, and you guys, I'm sure, are very busy, have other classes, jobs, social lives. This is not always going to take priority, and I understand that. But again, there has to be that give and take, right? I can't just let you not do anything all semester and then turn in a bunch of stuff at the very end of the semester in like a last ditch effort to pass the class. I don't allow that. But if you're going to need some extra time, email me and let me know what's going on, right? Otherwise, boom, late major projects may lose up to 10% per day until they are submitted, right? So if it's the deadline and Monday morning I'm ready to start grading, and I'm noticing that someone's project is missing, and I haven't gotten any word, I haven't gotten any communication from that person, points will be deducted. Okay, so keep me in the loop, keep the lines of communication open, and yes, email is going to be like really the majority of like the way that we interact. If you're just online, if you're just taking the 1101 class and you're not in the ALP class as well, but get in the habit of reading your emails. Get in the habit of checking your student emails every day. Check the student ones, right? I don't know your personal emails. And I prefer if you just use your COD email rather than your Gmail to send me stuff. But yeah, get in the habit of checking that every day, okay? Because that's my only way of getting in contact with you. Okay, that's enough of me being a curmudgeon. So, outline of topics. This is not only subject to change, but it will change, right? But this is just a very general sort of outline of the topics that we're going to go through from week one to the end of the semester. So again, follow what it says on Blackboard rather than like referring back to like the syllabus and outline of topics to know exactly like what's going on. You'll know what's going on, but I think it's better if I just kind of like, I'm not one of these teachers that commits to a schedule, day one, week one of the semester, and we got to stick with that. We're so rigid. I think that's silly as well. Because what if people are falling behind and not understanding the content? Writing project two specifically is one that's, there's a lot of moving parts. And so I typically end up having to take more like time to go through like exercises and examples so that students understand that. But yeah, at any rate, this is whatever, just a sort of broad outline of topics. Major projects. Major projects will always be due Sunday nights when they are due 11:59 p.m. I don't allow revisions after the assignments are graded. So you get the assignment back, you didn't do well, sorry about it. And the reason being is because, for one, I'm as I've mentioned, offering my help, my services in terms of providing feedback. I really want to emphasize the drafting part of the writing process, right? So there will be times in the semester when I ask to see a rough draft of your project. So that way I can see kind of like where your head's at, how you're moving. And if there are these like glaring issues, stuff that, would really hurt your grade if you turned that paper in, that version of the paper like that, we'll be able to fix that earlier on, right? and I'll say, okay, this is not working, so fix this, do this, that, and the other. And then boom, then the next time you turn it in, I know it's gonna be a much better version of it. Okay. I'm not like, secretive about my grading criteria. I provide grading criteria for all of the major projects. Um, I'm never gonna like, backdoor you guys and be like, oh, you forgot to do this. This thing that I didn't mention. You're gonna know, right away how you'll be evaluated for these assignments. And so if you follow that, you'll have no issue getting the grade that you want on these projects and in the class in general. It just comes down to doing the small things, getting the stuff in on time, doing the little assignments, following the grading criteria. If you do that, it's a very straightforward class, and you'll have no issue getting a grade that you're happy with. Okay. So I'm more than happy to check in and look at drafts before deadlines, but as I mentioned before, once the deadline's passed, we're on to the next unit. Okay. So if you're still needing more time and I okay that, all right, but I'm not going to be like giving you feedback and going back. Like we're already moving on to module 2 or module 3, the next writing project, right? That's where our focus is. I'm not going to be like, backpedaling over here, trying to, if I'll make exceptions if you're struggling with stuff, of course, but it just comes back to keeping the lines of communication open with me, letting me know what's going on. Don't wait until like week 7 or 8 when you haven't done anything at all and just be like, oh, yo, I am panicking. I don't know what to do. Dude, just come on. I try to be as approachable as possible with this. And I know there's that tendency when it's an online course to just be like, oh, what the hell? There's no class. There's no, class meeting time or anything. I'm just going to blow this off. You can't do that in this class. You cannot do that. You have to get stuff done promptly. Um, I don't feel like talking about the writing projects right now. We'll do it, of course, at a later date. This is the grading breakdown. So majority of the class is based on the writing projects. And then the other stuff. So online discussion, participation points, and then smaller homework assignments. And that adds up to 100%. It should be. Okay, a couple other things to note. Paper specifications. When it comes to writing your papers, you need to use Microsoft Word or Google Docs. You have to. As a matter of fact, I'm going to remove this right now. And not only do you need to use those, but you need to submit it to me as a Word document. I used to allow PDFs, but PDFs I can't make notes on. I can on my computer because I have, a MacBook, big flex. But like when I'm at school and I'm using their, older desktops that I prefer, to grade on because I don't like downloading everyone's project onto my, personal computer. I can't annotate anything because they don't have Adobe Acrobat or whatever the hell it is. So in that case, I can only, write little notes in the margins of a Word document. And, I'm not going to be printing stuff out and rescanning it. Everything we do is digital, and that should be very apparent. So make sure, A, that you're using Google Docs or Microsoft Word to write your papers, write your assignments. B, that you download it as a Word document. So for those folks who are using Google Docs or Microsoft Word online, understand that there is a proper way to submit it and improper ways to submit it. In fact, multiple improper ways to submit your work. You need to click download, like file, imagine you're looking at a Microsoft Word like this over here. I click file and I'm on the desktop version, like the downloaded version. But in the online version, I can scroll down to where it says download, and this goes for both Microsoft Word and Google Docs, and then download as DocX. It's the first option that's on there. Make sure you do that and download it to your computer and then upload it to Blackboard from there. If you just click the share button that's there at the top of the Google Docs page, sometimes I can't access that. If you copy and paste the URL and send that in, I for sure can't access that because it wants to just sign into your account when I click the link. And nothing, irks me more than that when I'm getting ready to grade and I have assignments that are blocking me from seeing the work. So be sure to submit it properly. That's your job to get the papers submitted in the proper way that I can read them. Okay? If you don't, then it's going to be a zero until I have the paper and until it's submitted properly, right? So this is me giving you the heads up right now. Another thing, so I guess C, don't use Apple Pages or the Notes app to write your papers. I would think that this is pretty self-explanatory, right? Because people that are using like the Notes app, it's like, are you writing this on your phone? Don't write a paper on your phone, right? If you're going to work on a tablet, fine, but use Google Docs. Write it on a computer or a tablet. Don't write a paper on your phone, and you can't use Apple Pages or Notes because I can't access those files. Apple Pages in particular will send me something and I'm reading it and it's just like code. It's just like JavaScript. I can't access it. Same thing, Notes will send me something and I can read it, but it will like hit enter on every single line. So a two-page paper becomes like 100 pages because there's all these unnecessary spaces. I don't like that. I'm not going to read that. I'm not going to subject myself to that, bro. That's ridiculous. So do it right. It's very simple. It's very simple. It really is. But it's inevitable that it's going to happen and somebody's going to do it and I'm just going to be like, "Bro, do you listen?" So do it right. Download it as a docx and upload it to Blackboard. Otherwise, it's a zero until I can see it. AI policy. Don't use AI. I'm not even gonna get into it, bro. It honestly just pisses me off. Don't even try to do it because dude, we might even do like chat GPT stuff in class just so I can like demonstrate to you um the silliness of thinking that you can like get away with using like chat GPT work. And on a more serious note, this is extended to my students who are maybe working on stuff like grammar or spelling and punctuation. I'm not deducting points based off grammar, punctuation. This is not a grammar class. Okay, this is not a class where we're talking about those things. If that's stuff that you need to work on, I'm happy to help you work on that. Right? That's better. That's better served for like one-on-one conversations and like me giving you like feedback and stuff like that. If you're just taking your work that you know is lackluster in that department, the standard English department, right? And churning it into Chat GPT would who whatever, which cleans it up, fixes it, and adds different words if you're being repetitive. You're not learning anything. You're learning how to use a calculator, right? And that's not acceptable, and it's just like, so don't do it. Even if you're like struggling with standard English, um, that's why I'm here. Okay, I'm here to help you with this. And as I just said, I'm not. First of all, I'm not going to judge you. I don't care about grammar. First of all, there are some genres of writing where grammar and spelling and punctuation are there's nothing standard about it, right? Think about the way you send text messages with your friends. You guys might have a shorthand. You might, you're using like little code words. You have your own sort of like vernacular. Does that make it illegitimate as a form of communication because there are spelling errors in there because you're not using proper grammar? Do your friends care when they're reading your message? Of course not. They'll probably think you're a total weirdo if you're sending text messages that are like written like an English paper. Okay? And there's plenty of other examples of that too. It's not just texting. But I don't dock points. I'm not marking points off for spelling errors and things of that nature, right? Um, so don't use ChatGPT unless I say, hey, for this assignment, do this, blah blah blah. Because we might, as I said, we might mess around with it a little bit. But um, golly, I've been talking for a long time. The rest of the stuff, feel free to check out. It's kind of like resources for you guys. But that is our semester in a nutshell. Okay, so um, let me go ahead. Let's go back to Blackboard real quick. See if there's anything else I need to. Okay, I'm gonna end this video here. I'll see you in the next video. And it's great to meet you all digitally. ALP kids, I'll see you tomorrow, Monday, bright and early. Maybe not early. I don't know what time we meet. The rest of you guys, online digitally only, just doing the 11 to 1 class. Reach out if you need anything from me. And yeah, let's have a great semester. Okay, great. How do I Oh gosh. Stop sharing screen. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. All right. Bye-bye.